imagine if Entombed and Watain teamed up with Dissection and Darkest Hour practicing in Misfits' rehearsal space. So first full-length album review of 2024, and we're kicking things off with Upon Stone and their brand new album, Dead Mother Moon. So Dead Mother Moon is a Century Media Records debut. It is also the band's debut album, so it's the first example that we've heard aside from a couple of EPs. So the band meld early elements of melodeath and black metal, and in terms of a sound, I would say imagine if Entombed and Watain teamed up with Dissection and Darkest Hour practicing in Misfits' rehearsal space. The album kind of comes out of the gates quite sort of quickly, but later on in the record, I think there's a bit more emphasis on atmosphere and kind of creating a little bit more of a mystique around some of the songs. There's no question about everyone's ability in this band, and I think, you know, they can kind of change from blasting, you know, frostbitten black metal moments to more rhythmic sort of hardcore, and then also quite like punky and jagged at times, which I thought was interesting. And, you know, where I was talking about atmosphere, it's very much kind of well entrenched in that 90s sort of feel. And I think My Destiny, A Weapon, that track kind of comes quite close to feeling to, you know, how those classic 90s records would have felt in terms of atmosphere. And you can also see more of atmosphere on Dusk Sang Fairest and also Nocturnalism. I think, you know, the acoustic passages there kind of reminded me a little bit of Cradle of Filth in some places, which I thought was quite cool. But it has that chilliness to it, you know, that early sort of Dissection, the Somber Lane kind of vibe used to have. I also think that there's quite a lot of sense of melancholy in, you know, the melodies, but also the sort of delivery. And whilst parts of the album I think were really, really solid and very strong dynamics, because the transitions are a little bit more clumsy, it kind of makes it less cohesive overall. You know, there's kind of moments which really shine, and then moments where you're kind of like, oh, that could have, you know, been a bit better. And where guitar's concerned, particularly the solos, they've reminded me of that sort of, you know, like old school Metallica, sort of 80s thrash, but with a little hint of Machine Head thrown in there, particularly that sort of like neoclassical kind of run. And like, you know, Paradise Failed's midsection, for example, really did kind of tip the hat for me to Machine Head. But, you know, they're doing it in a way which is very much their own kind of thing. And in terms of production, Taylor Young has nailed it. You know, it's absolutely, completely sounding like it would have been in the 90s, but makes sure that it's relevant, but it does have that sort of like ghoulish nature to it, which I really, really enjoyed. In terms of influences, there are some tracks which, you know, the influences are plain as day. You know, you can hear Paradise Failed's At the Gates Worship pretty much straight away, which actually has a guest appearance from Brian Fair from Shadows Fall, which is pretty cool. But I think it's, you know, when we get to near the end of the album, where the final track, The Lantern, for example, sees all of these influences kind of culminating together, you know, and the genres that they're playing with, so black metal, death metal, you know, that sort of like mellow death as well, all coming together to create something that I think is probably the most cohesive track, and maybe the biggest hint of what we might be seeing going forward from Upon Stone. There's also a cover of Misfits' Dig Up Her Bones, which I thought was really cool. That's actually one of my favourite Misfits songs. But also, you know, that kind of gives you an idea of what this band are into, you know, like there's quite a broad depth of, you know, the influences. And whilst, you know, sometimes they are a bit more obvious, I think for a debut, this is really quite strong. In truth, I think it'll be interesting to see how the band proceed and kind of evolve in terms of more of a personality and have a bit more individuality It's a strong debut, and I think there are some moments which kind of do require a little bit of work, but you know, overall it's pretty solid, and I would definitely recommend you give it a listen. So for that reason, I'm going to give this album a 7 out of 10. So thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think in the comments underneath me about the video and Upon Stone as well. And I will be coming back very, very soon with another album review in the form of, drumroll, Vitriol's Suffer and Become. So I'm going to be trying to upload as best I can on Mondays now, so that you guys know that you've always got an upload coming up. I'll do my best to kind of stick with that and get a little bit better at uploading. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care.